Hi everyone, it's Cameron again from Turtleshell Software, and today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the uses of C Sharp and do a small tutorial on it. Firstly, I'd like to say that as a beginner, C Sharp is a pretty good language to learn. It's fairly straightforward and it's practiced by a lot of people, therefore there's a lot of support for it. So some of the uses for C Sharp are in console applications, which seem like simple programs that you would run and not much user interface, but they can also be used to automate tasks. Another common one is ASP.NET applications. With ASP.NET and C Sharp, you can create web applications as well as your own APIs. One of the ones that I've had a lot of experience with is Xamarin development, which is Microsoft's mobile cross-platform development in C Sharp. And if you don't know what cross-platform development is, that's one code base to create an app for Android, iOS, and also Universal Windows platform. And probably my most favourite use of C Sharp is in game development, and the Unity game engine uses C Sharp. If you'd like to get into Unity, I'll leave a link in the description. It's free and very easy to use, and once again there's a lot of support for that. Great little community to learn from. So let's get started.
We're going to get started by opening up Visual Studio 2019, and if you don't have that, once again I'll just leave a link below and you can follow that and download it, and it's quite easy to set up. First we'll create a new project. We're going to select console application, and now we're going to name the project. So it's important that you name it something that's probably a little bit more descriptive than console app 1. You might not have something if you're just messing around with code, but I suggest it's a little bit easier to keep track of your projects if you rather than just have console app 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's just call this my first console app. And hit next. We're going to use .NET 5.0 because that's the most up-to-date version of .NET currently. You can see that when the project is opened up, it already comes with a few lines of code. What we're interested in is this static void main, and anything that goes on in between these two curly brackets here, this is called the entry point, and this is our code that gets executed. At the moment it's already got this method called console.writeLine, and it's got a value of hello world. So what it's going to do when we run our application is it's actually just going to print hello world on the console app, and that's it. To run the application you can click on the green icon, or you can hit F5. I highly recommend that you get used to using shortcut keys that you come across. It can dramatically increase your productivity in most cases. So if you start the program, you can see that it prints hello world, just as intended, and to close it you press any key, just as it says there. What we can do now is we can make this a little bit more interesting by adding what we call a variable, and we're going to add a string variable. Now we're actually using a string value already in our application, and if you hover over this hello world, Visual Studio will actually tell you that it's a type string. So that's another reason I like C Sharp, is because you can use Visual Studio for it, and Visual Studio has a lot of small things that help you along the way, such as this. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to store this hello world variable value in a variable of our own. What we have to do is declare the variable first by telling it the type, which is string, and we're going to give it a name. What we'll call it greeting, and then we have to assign it a value. We assign things by using the equal sign. So in this case, equals won't really mean it's equal. It's actually assigning a value. And we're going to take hello world, we'll cut it from here and insert it here. You'll notice that a string value has to be between double quotation marks in C Sharp. and when we finish assigning it, we're going to end the line of code with a semicolon. The next thing we'll do is we're just going to put greeting. We're going to pass greeting as an argument in our console.writeLine method. And once again, you can see there, it's a string value. This is actually going to give us the same output as before. It should give us hello world when we run the program. So let's run it. There you go, hello world. We're going to make this a little bit more personalized now. So instead of just saying hello world, what we want to do is make it say hello and then whatever your name is. So in my case, it would be hello Cam. So we'll modify this string so that it just says hello and a space. What we're going to do, what we'll want to do is capture another variable, another string variable called name. Now to begin with, we can just leave it instantiated as an empty string. We're going to have a greeting message that's going to suggest to the user to input a name. So what is, we'll say, please enter your name. What we want to do next is capture the user's input and store it in this name variable that we've created here. So to do that, we type in console.readline. Oh, sorry, we have to do name equals console.readline. So once again, this is assigning the user's input into that variable. Next, we should be able to type in console.writeline. And once again, if you want to use shortcuts, a great shortcut is CW tab, and it'll do that for you. What we're going to do is type in our first variable, greeting, and then this is called concatenation, where you add two variables together, two string variables, and we're going to add the name. So if you run the program now, it'll say please enter your name, Cam, enter. There we go, hello Cam, our own personal greeting. Close the window. We often use programming to perform mathematical functions. Some basic functions would be addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. We can demonstrate these quite easily in a console application. Instead of using just string variables, we're going to use what's called an integer. So let's clean up all this because we no longer want it. And let's make an application that will add two numbers together. So instead of please enter your name, let's have enter first number. And what we're going to do is declare an integer variable. So let's call it first number. And notice that I'm using what they call camel case, and the camel case is going to start with a lowercase first letter, and any additional first letter of a word that's in the description is going to be capitalized. So we're just going to initialize it by starting it off as 0. And after we enter the first number, we're going to do the same sort of thing as we did before, and we're going to capture the user's input and store it in our variable. So first number equals console.readline. Open, close brackets, semicolon. Now what's actually happening here, we're getting an error. So red squiggly line means an error, and if you hover over the top of it, you can see it says cannot implicitly convert type string to int. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to store a string value in an integer, and that's just not on in C#. So we're going to have to convert it, and we have this great little convert method called convert.convert. to int32, and then we're going to wrap this method inside some brackets, and that's actually going to convert it to an integer. Great. So now we're going to duplicate that because we need two numbers, which means we need a second variable, integer variable. Let's call it, you guessed it, second number. Don't forget to change this one to second number. Enter, please enter second number. Great, so we've got two numbers stored in variables. Now what we want to do is print the result. So console.writeLine, and we're actually going to just do the first number plus the second number. This is actually going to automatically convert from an integer to a string value, so don't forget that. And if we run it, enter the first number. Let's go with 2. The second number we'll do 3, so the result should be 5. There we go, the result is 5. And we can actually make that a little bit more obvious by saying, let's go, oops, sorry, that's a string value. So we're concatenating two string values here. So we've got the string result, and then this is actually another string. So string plus string, and that's going to concatenate them together. So first number, let's do the same again, 2 and 3, and there we go, result is 23. And I just realized what I said, the result is not supposed to be 23, obviously because 2 plus 3 is 5. What it ended up doing was concatenating 3 strings. Instead of treating the first number plus second number as an equation, it's now just treated them as 3 separate strings. What we're going to have to do to resolve this issue is we can just wrap those in some brackets, and it should solve this part first before it concatenates those two as string. So try it again, run the program, 2 plus 3, result equals 5, correct. Now this has been a real simple introduction into what C# is and what it can do. Trust me, there's plenty more where that came from. We're looking to do another tutorial in the near future, probably to do a little bit more with object-oriented programming, seeming C# is an object-oriented programming language. If you've learned something from today, please like the video, share the video, comment if you have any constructive feedback or useful information that other programmers might find intriguing. Otherwise, thanks for watching and have a great day.